My name is Courtney Wild, and I was sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein as a child.
Jeffrey Epstein started his targeted grooming and manipulation of me as a child.
We were all about the same age, and we were in the city by ourselves, some of us for the first time.
I was being raped.
Despite living in different parts of the world, these women have faced unimaginable abuse at the hands of Epstein and his enablers. In this video, we explore the stories of Jeffrey Epstein's victims as they open up, the impact it has had on their lives, and the strength they have found in each other. The victims that have come forward. From the moment Epstein's arrest shocked the world, his victims have been fighting for justice, but their path to truth and accountability was obstructed at every turn. Epstein, along with his team of high-powered lawyers, worked tirelessly to keep his victims out of the public eye and away from the media's scrutiny. According to the Miami Herald, Epstein's accusers filed numerous lawsuits against him, some dating back to 2009. However, these cases never made it to trial. Shockingly, Bloomberg reported that Epstein settled some of these lawsuits for over $1 million each. This hush money was a calculated attempt to silence the victims and bury the scandal. Epstein's legal team, known for their aggressive tactics, has gone to great lengths to discredit the victims. Many of these courageous survivors come from economically disadvantaged backgrounds, making them vulnerable targets for manipulation. Epstein's lawyers shamelessly claimed that the girls lied about their ages or fabricated allegations to extort money. But the battle to silence Epstein's victims didn't end there. In 2008, Epstein struck a plea deal that allowed him to avoid federal prosecution by pleading guilty to soliciting a minor for prostitution in a Florida state court. Shockingly, this deal was negotiated in secret, deliberately excluding Epstein's victims from the process. The Miami Herald reported that Epstein's legal team's primary goal was to shut out the victims and make the scandal disappear as quietly as possible. As a result, the voices of these brave survivors were silenced, their stories suppressed, and their pain ignored. One of Epstein's accusers, Courtney Wild, bravely spoke out about the impact of the plea deal. She stated, "As soon as that deal was signed, they silenced my voice and the voices of all of Jeffrey Epstein's other victims. It was a devastating blow to those who had summoned the courage to come forward and seek justice." However, later in 2019, a federal judge ruled that Florida prosecutors had violated the law by making the plea deal without the victim's knowledge. This ruling shed light on the injustice that had been perpetrated against Epstein's victims and the lengths to which powerful individuals were willing to go to protect him. After Epstein's 2009 arrest, more alleged victims came forward, determined to have their voices heard. At Epstein's bail hearing, Assistant U.S. Attorney Alex Rossmiller revealed that several new accusers approached investigators, and more came forward after Epstein was denied bail. The truth slowly emerged from the shadows. The true extent of Epstein's abuse is difficult to comprehend. Estimates of the number of girls allegedly abused by Epstein vary, with some accounts suggesting a few dozen while others claim over 100. The indictment against Epstein charged him with sexually exploiting and abusing dozens of underage girls at his residences in Manhattan, Palm Beach, and other locations, with allegations dating back to 2002. However, it is highly likely that the actual number of victims is much higher. The investigations into Epstein's crimes began in 2005 when the parents of a 14-year-old girl reported to the Palm Beach police that Epstein had molested their daughter at his home. This courageous act sparked a chain of events that would eventually expose the dark underbelly of Epstein's world. According to the Miami Herald, by 2008, when Epstein was granted his infamous plea deal, federal prosecutors had identified 36 underage victims. These young girls, vulnerable and unsuspecting, were subjected to unimaginable horrors at the hands of a man who wielded power and influence. Julie K. Brown, the Miami Herald journalist who extensively covered the allegations against Epstein, received a heavily redacted police report early in her reporting process. This report mentioned over 100 Jane Does, hinting at the potential scale of Epstein's abuse. The true number of victims may never be fully known, but the evidence suggests a shocking reality. In November 2018, Brown reported that the Herald had identified approximately 80 women who alleged that they were molested or sexually abused by Epstein between 2001 and 2006. These women, whose lives were forever altered by their encounters with Epstein, bravely stepped forward to share their stories. Out of the 80 women identified by the Herald, around 60 were located, and 8 of them agreed to be interviewed. Their accounts painted a harrowing picture picture of a man who preyed on vulnerable young girls, exploiting their innocence for his twisted desires. Courtney Wild, one of Epstein's accusers, revealed the shocking extent of his abuse. She stated that Epstein's insatiable appetite for young girls knew no bounds. His desire for more victims was never satisfied. Other witnesses have testified in civil court that hundreds of girls were brought to Epstein's homes. The sheer magnitude of the operation is difficult to comprehend. Epstein's properties became a playground for his sick and twisted fantasies, where innocent lives were shattered. Virginia Giuffre's story is one of the most well-known accounts of abuse at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein. At the age of 16, Giuffre's life took a dark turn when she was introduced to Epstein through Ghislaine Maxwell. It was the summer of 2000, and Giuffre was working as an attendant at the spa in Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump's resort. Maxwell approached Giuffre with an enticing offer to work as a masseuse for Epstein. Promised travel and an education, Giuffre saw this as an opportunity to better her life. She did not know that this decision would lead her down a path of unimaginable abuse. The abuse began soon after Giuffre accepted the offer. Epstein demanded sexual services not only for himself, but also for some of his influential friends. Giuffre's whole life revolved around pleasing these men and keeping Maxwell and Epstein happy. Their entire existence seemed to revolve around sex. In 2015, Giuffre came forward with her story, shedding light on the dark secrets of Epstein's world. In a sworn deposition taken in 2016, she detailed the horrors she endured. Her bravery in speaking out against such a powerful figure was commendable, but it also came with its own set of challenges. Giuffre's pursuit of justice was met with skepticism and scrutiny. Some questioned her credibility, attempting to discredit her story. But Giuffre remained steadfast in her truth, determined to seek justice not only for herself, but for all the survivors who have suffered at the hands of Epstein and his enablers. The impact of the abuse on Giuffre's life cannot be overstated. It has left deep emotional scars that continue to affect her to this day. The trauma she experienced has reverberated throughout her relationships, her sense of self, and her ability to trust others. But through it all, Giuffre has shown incredible strength and resilience. Her decision to share her story empowered other survivors to come forward, creating a ripple effect that brought the issue of sexual abuse and exploitation into the spotlight. Giuffre's courage has sparked a global conversation and has played a significant role in exposing the truth about Epstein's crimes. Another victim, Teresa Helm's encounter with Jeffrey Epstein began when she was 22 years old. Trained as a massage therapist, Helm had dreams of building a successful career in New York. Helm arrived at Epstein's mansion on the Upper East Side, believing she was attending a job interview. Alone with Epstein, she was asked to give him a foot rub. Obliging at first, Helm soon became uncomfortable when Epstein started touching her inappropriately. She mustered the courage to resist and tried to leave, but Epstein overpowered her. Fleeing the house and leaving New York became Helm's immediate response to the traumatic experience. For close to 2 decades, she buried the memories, trying to move on with her life. But the news of Epstein's arrest in the summer of 2019 brought everything rushing back to the surface. Helm's journey towards healing and justice has been a long and arduous one. Opening up about her abuse was not an easy decision, as she had to confront the pain and trauma she had buried for so long. But Helm's determination to seek justice for herself and other survivors propelled her forward. Helm, like many survivors, faced skepticism and doubt from those who questioned the validity of her story. But she remains resolute in her truth, knowing that her voice matters and that her experience deserves to be heard. Helm's journey towards healing has been a complex one. It has involved therapy, support from loved ones, and a deep commitment to self-care. She has had to navigate the emotional aftermath of the abuse, rebuilding her sense of self and learning to trust again. Rachel Benavidez, Marike Chartouni, and Sarah Ransom are 3 other survivors whose lives were forever changed by their encounters with Jeffrey Epstein. Rachel Benavidez was just 25 years old when she was hired to work as a masseuse at Epstein's palatial New Mexico ranch. At first, Maxwell was her client, but everything changed when she was introduced to Epstein. The abuse began, and it continued until Benavidez refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement. She was 27 at the time. Marike Chartouni, then 20 years old, had recently moved to New York in 2000. A friend she had known for a few months invited her to Epstein's townhouse under the pretense of having coffee. But what awaited Chartouni was a dark room where both Epstein and her friend assaulted her. Frozen in fear, she endured the assault. Later, Epstein's staff reached out to her, but she declined any further contact. She left New York in 2002, burying the incident until recently when she shared her story with the police and her husband. Sarah Ransom's recruitment into Epstein's operation in New York in 2006 came through a woman who claimed that an older philanthropist could help her break into the fashion world. Ransom met Epstein and accepted an invitation to his private island, Little St. James. The abuse she endured during the 6 months she spent there was constant. Ransom finally left Epstein in New York in 2007. The impact of the abuse on their lives cannot be understated. It has left deep emotional scars, affecting their relationship relationships, their sense of self, and their ability to trust. But through it all, Benavidez, Chartouni, and Ransom have shown strength and resilience. These women, who should have never met, share a bond that goes beyond word. They have all endured pain at the hands of the same person. While their stories may differ in the details, the underlying trauma unites them in a way that only they can understand. When asked what it means to have the sisterhood of amazing, strong women, Virginia Giuffre said, "It means the world to know that we have this bond, a bond that we unknowingly built. We went through something very similar together. We were all abused by the same person. And even without having to ask each other, 'What happened to you?' we already get it. We already know." Teresa Helm said the sisterhood is important. She said, "We have been through so much, and it's crucial that we focus on moving forward. We want to help other women and children who have experienced similar traumas." These survivors are not afraid to talk about the subject that society often shies away from. They believe that just like any other crime, sex trafficking should be openly discussed. They want to initiate a change in the way people respond to this issue. They understand that one voice can turn into many, and their collective strength can have a profound impact on changing the world. Teresa Helm said, "It's not an easy journey, but it's one that we are committed to. It takes a lot of strength and courage to face our past and work towards healing. But by speaking out and taking these long strides, we become stronger and better equipped to deal with the horrors that happened to us so long ago." These survivors draw strength from their sisterhood. They understand the power of being there for each other, providing a shoulder to cry on, an ear to listen, and a voice to uplift. They have formed an unbreakable bond that transcends their individual stories. Together, they are on a mission to heal themselves and heal the world. Besides these courageous women, there are others known simply as Jane Does. Let's look at their stories. Jane Doe and the girls that recruit other girls. In the early 2000s, a series of shocking lawsuits were filed against the wealthy financier. These lawsuits were brought by brave women who would come to be known as the Jane Does. Their stories would expose a dark and disturbing world of exploitation and abuse. One of the earliest cases was filed on February 6, 2008, by an anonymous Virginia woman referred to as Jane Doe No. 2. In her $50 million civil lawsuit, she alleged that when she was just a 16-year-old minor in 2004 and 2005, she was recruited to give Epstein a massage. According to Jane Doe No. 2, she was taken to Epstein's opulent mansion, where he exposed himself and engaged in sexual intercourse with her. She was paid $200 afterward. Not long after, another woman, represented by the same lawyer, filed a similar $50 million suit in March 2008. This woman's allegations mirrored those of Jane Doe No. 2, further highlighting the disturbing pattern of behavior exhibited by Epstein. These initial lawsuits were just the tip of the iceberg, as more and more Jane Does would come forward with their own harrowing stories. In 2016, another shocking case emerged, further exposing the alleged dark secrets of Jeffrey Epstein. This time, the lawsuit involved not only Epstein, but also a prominent figure in American politics, Donald Trump. A California woman whose identity remains anonymous filed a federal lawsuit against both Epstein and Trump, alleging that they sexually assaulted her at a series of parties held at Epstein's opulent Manhattan residence in 1994 when she was just 13 years old. The details of the lawsuit were nothing short of horrifying. The woman claimed that she was lured into Epstein's world of wealth and influence only to be subjected to unspeakable acts of abuse. She described a series of parties where she and other underage girls were exploited and violated by Epstein and his powerful associates. According to the lawsuit, Trump was among those who took advantage of these vulnerable young girls. However, the lawsuit faced significant legal hurdles. In May 2016, a federal judge dismissed the case, ruling that it did not raise valid claims under federal law. This decision dealt a blow to the woman's quest for justice and accountability. Undeterred, she filed another federal suit in New York in June 2016, but it was withdrawn just 3 months later, seemingly without being served on the defendants. Despite these setbacks, the woman's allegations continued to reverberate, leaving a cloud of suspicion hanging over Trump. The lawsuits filed against Epstein and Trump included affidavits from anonymous witnesses who attested to the accusations made by the plaintiff. The case took an unexpected turn when the plaintiff, who had filed anonymously as Jane Doe, was scheduled to appear in a highly anticipated press conference in Los Angeles just days before the 2016 election. However, the event was abruptly canceled, and her lawyer, Lisa Bloom, revealed that the woman had received threats, prompting concerns for her safety. The sudden cancellation only added to the intrigue surrounding the case, leaving many to wonder about the forces at play behind the scenes. On November 4, 2016, the lawsuit was dropped, leaving the woman's allegations unresolved. Trump's attorney, Alan Garten, vehemently denied the accusations, while Epstein chose to remain silent. The truth behind the allegations made by Jane Doe and the involvement of Trump and Epstein may never be fully known. The allegations made by the anonymous woman shed light on a world where the wealthy and influential can seemingly operate with impunity, shielded by their status and connections. While the legal battles may have ended, the questions and suspicions surrounding Epstein and Trump persist. In August 2019, the legal battle against Jeffrey Epstein took a new turn as three brave women known as Caitlin Doe, Lisa Doe, and Priscilla Doe filed a lawsuit against Epstein's estate. These women, who were just 17 years old and 20 years old when they first encountered Epstein, alleged that they were recruited, subjected to unwanted sex acts, and controlled by Epstein and a vast enterprise of co-conspirators. Their lawsuit painted a chilling picture of manipulation and exploitation. The women claimed that Epstein used his wealth and influence to groom and exploit vulnerable young girls, trapping them in a web of abuse from which it seemed impossible to escape. But Caitlin, Lisa, and Priscilla were not alone in their fight for justice. In September 2019, another accuser, known only as Jane Doe, announced a federal lawsuit against Epstein's estate in the Southern District of New York. She revealed that she was recruited by Epstein in 2002 and sexually abused by him for 3 years, starting at the tender age of 14. On November 18, 2019, a woman identified as Jane Doe 15 made a public appearance with her attorney, Gloria Allred, to announce that she was suing the estate of Jeffrey Epstein. She alleged that Epstein had manipulated, trafficked, and sexually abused her in 2004 when she was just 15 years old. The legal battle against Epstein's estate continued to gain momentum. On December 3, 2019, lawyer Jordan Merson filed a lawsuit in New York on behalf of 9 anonymous accusers, known as Jane Does 1 to 9. The lawsuit alleged battery, assault, and intentional emotional distress, with claims dating back to the 1980s through the 2000s. These women, who were just 13, 14, and 15 years old when they first encountered Epstein, shared harrowing accounts of abuse and exploitation. The fight for justice extended beyond the United States. In late December 2019, Bradley Edwards, an attorney, filed a lawsuit on behalf of his client, J.J. Doe, a 14-year-old resident of Palm Beach County at the time of the abuse in 2004. J.J. Doe's lawsuit sought to hold Epstein accountable for the trauma she endured as a young girl. In January 2020, another lawsuit was filed, this time against Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's former associate, and Epstein himself. The lawsuit alleged that they had recruited a 13-year-old music student at the Interlochen Center for the Arts in 1994 and subjected her to sexual abuse. The plaintiff, known as Jane Doe, claimed that she was repeatedly assaulted by Epstein over 4 years, with Maxwell playing a key role in both her recruitment and the assaults. In August 2020, 9 more Jane Does filed suit, accusing Epstein of sexual abuse. The alleged victims included an 11-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a victim who alleged abuse as far back as 1975. Their lawsuits exposed the long-standing pattern of abuse and exploitation that had allegedly taken place over decades. Even as the legal battles raged on, more survivors came forward. In August 2020, Epstein was sued by Jane Doe, who accused him of sexually abusing her for over a year, beginning when she was 18. In March 2021, a civil suit was filed against Epstein's estate by a Broward County woman. She accused Epstein and Maxwell of trafficking her after repeatedly raping her in Florida in 2008. Her lawsuit served as a stark reminder that the effects of Epstein's alleged actions continued to haunt his victims long after the abuse had ended. Let's talk about the role of Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's former associate, in these criminal acts. Ghislaine Maxwell, born on Christmas Day in 1961, was the youngest of 9 children in the Maxwell family. Her father, Robert Maxwell, was a British newspaper baron, and her mother, Elizabeth, was French. The Maxwells resided in Oxford, England, at Headington Hill Hall, a sprawling mansion that also served as the headquarters for Robert Maxwell's publishing company, Pergamon Press. Ghislaine and her siblings were raised in an environment of high expectations, as their father held them to exacting standards. Ghislaine's education played a significant role in shaping her future. She attended Marlborough College and later enrolled at Balliol College, Oxford, where she studied modern history with languages. It was during her time at Oxford that she formed a friendship with actor Hugh Grant and even established an Oxford United Supporters Club. Ghislaine's involvement in the world of football continued when her father assumed the chairmanship of the club between 1982 and 1987, and she became a director. In the 1980s, Ghislaine gained a reputation as a socialite, traveling extensively as a consultant for her father's businesses. She also ran a corporate gifts enterprise that her father had set up for her. Ghislaine's close relationship with her father was evident when he named his luxury yacht the Lady Ghislaine after her in 1986. In November of the same year, Robert Maxwell disappeared suddenly from the deck of the Lady Ghislaine off the Canary Islands. Islands. His body was later found floating at sea. It was a shocking turn of events that revealed the extent of his fraudulent activities. It emerged that he had fraudulently appropriated over £440 million in pension assets from Mirror Group newspapers, defrauding 32,000 employees. The surviving Maxwell family and the British government became liable for this debt. Following her father's death, Ghislaine made a permanent move to New York City. She immersed herself in the city's social scene and became acquainted with influential figures. It was during this time that she crossed paths with billionaire financier Jeffrey Epstein, a former Bear Stearns trader turned consultant. The exact nature of their relationship remains unclear, but it is believed to have been romantic, at least initially. Epstein referred to Ghislaine as his best friend, and she seemed to play a significant role in organizing his life. In 1995, Epstein, like Ghislaine's father, named a new venture after her, the Ghislaine Corporation. Based in Palm Beach, Florida, the venture, however, was short-lived and dissolved 3 years later. It was during this period in the mid-1990s that Ghislaine and Epstein allegedly encountered several underage girls who would later accuse him of sexual abuse. These girls included an unnamed 13-year-old music student and teenage sisters, Marie and Annie Farmer. In 1999, Ghislaine is believed to have first encountered Virginia Giuffre, who would later accuse Epstein of sexual abuse. Ghislaine moved to a townhouse in New York, not far from Epstein's mansion, in 2000. The couple continued to move in high-profile circles, attending social gatherings at the Queen's Sandringham House estate in Norfolk, England. These events were often at the invitation of Ghislaine's friend, Prince Andrew. Throughout this time, Ghislaine allegedly continued to act as Epstein's assistant, organizing his life and accompanying him on his travels. The couple moved between New York City, Epstein's secluded residences in Palm Beach and New Mexico, and his private Caribbean island, Little St. James. They were often seen in the company of high-profile individuals, including former President Bill Clinton and celebrity lawyer Alan Dershowitz. However, in 2005, the facade of Epstein's world began to crumble. Palm Beach police launched an investigation into Epstein after a parent accused him of molesting their 14-year-old stepdaughter. The investigation uncovered disturbing evidence, including hidden cameras, numerous photos of girls, and an Amazon receipt for books on sex slavery. It became clear that Epstein's actions were far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. In 2008, Epstein pleaded guilty to procuring a child for prostitution and soliciting a prostitute. He served a mere 13 months of an 18-month jail sentence thanks to a controversial plea deal agreed upon with state prosecutors, including future Trump administration cabinet member Alex Acosta. Following Epstein's release, Ghislaine and Epstein were no longer seen together publicly. Ghislaine turned her attention towards environmentalism and attended conferences around the world to promote the Terramar Project, a non-profit organization supposedly engaged in ocean conservation. However, it was later revealed that the organization had no offices or grants and ceased operations in 2019. In 2015, Virginia Giuffre filed a civil action against Epstein, accusing Ghislaine of introducing her to Epstein and actually grooming her for sexual favors. Ghislaine vehemently denied these accusations and was sued for defamation by Giuffre. The allegations against Ghislaine Maxwell continued to mount as more women came forward with their stories. In 2019, Epstein was arrested for a second time on charges of sex trafficking and sex trafficking conspiracy. However, before he could stand trial, he was found dead in his Manhattan prison cell, reportedly having taken his own life. Ghislaine went into hiding, communicating with the courts solely through her lawyers. In December 2019, it was reported that the FBI was investigating her for allegedly facilitating Epstein's criminal activities. Her representatives launched a lawsuit of their own in March 2020, suing the estate of Jeffrey Epstein to recoup her legal costs. Finally, in July 2020, Ghislaine was located and arrested at a house in Bradford, New Hampshire by the FBI. She was charged with enticement of minors, sex trafficking of children, and perjury. Initially, Ghislaine's legal team sought bail, but their attempts were unsuccessful. In July 2021, a federal judge denied her bail, ruling that she represented a flight risk. The judge's decision was based on the substantial assets Ghislaine held, estimated at $22.5 million, and the $7 million she had set aside for her defense. The court deemed her a potential flight risk, given the seriousness of the charges against her and the international connections she possessed. In January 2021, just months before the trial was set to begin, 112 legal documents relating to Ghislaine's case were made public. These documents, amounting to thousands thousands of pages, contained shocking revelations. One notable statement alleged that Ghislaine directed a room full of underage girls to engage in sexual acts for the pleasure of Epstein and herself. In March 2021, prosecutors in the Southern District of New York filed 2 additional charges against Ghislaine in their sex trafficking case. The trial itself was a highly publicized event, drawing attention from around the world. Ghislaine's legal team argued that she was being made a scapegoat for Epstein's crimes in the wake of his suicide. The prosecution, on the other hand, presented a compelling case against Ghislaine. They called upon numerous witnesses, including victims who bravely shared their stories of abuse. After 6 days of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Ghislaine Maxwell was found guilty on multiple charges, including conspiracy to entice a minor to travel to engage in illegal sex acts, conspiracy to transport a minor with the intent to engage in criminal sexual activity, transporting a minor with the intent to engage in criminal sexual activity, conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of minors, and sex trafficking of minors. However, she was found not guilty on the charge of enticing a minor to travel to engage in illegal sex acts. In June 2022, Ghislaine Maxwell faced her sentencing hearing. Judge Allison Nathan described her offenses as heinous and predatory and sentenced her to spend 20 years behind bars. She was also fined $750,000. The sentence exceeded the judge's own maximum sentencing guideline, reflecting the severity of Ghislaine's crimes. If you enjoyed this video, click on the card showing on your screen right now for more videos exposing heinous crimes.